In our news headlines today, we begin out of Dane County, where a dairy herd tested positive for bovine tuberculosis. Wisconsin has been certified as TB-free since 1980. So for producers, this does mean taking a few extra precautions. Make sure you're buying from a certified, accredited TB-free herd. Limit contact between your herd and others. Clean trailers and facilities with a disinfectant. Make sure your fences are in good condition to keep wildlife away from your animals. Limit who has access to your herd and make sure they are following proper biosecurity protocol. A very important note, though, the milk system's safe for consumers. The pasteurization process destroys disease-causing organisms like this in milk.
And that's an important point to stress, Melaine, so thank you. Well, the latest area crop progress report is out, and it's appropriate for this season, with Mother Nature providing plenty of tricks and treats for our farmers.
The treats are the fact that when we take a look at this year's crop, we still have almost 3/4 of it that's rated good to excellent. The trick is that we can't get it out of the field. And that's very evident when we talk about soybeans. We've got maybe 10–15% of the beans out of the field. We should be over 40% by now.
Now, since the harvest progress is similar for both corn and soybeans, I asked Jarek if there was any necessity to get one crop off the field first.
I think there's no question that we want to get the beans out of the field, given the fact that we have the potential for some mold in those pods, and plants have moved with some of the wind that we've seen. But at the end of the day, if I can get into a field and I can get the crop out, I'm not going to spend too much time worrying about whether it's the corn or the beans.
Because of these wet conditions, molds and mycotoxins are a concern, but also there are worries about compaction.
If it's surface compaction, Mother Nature will take care of that with the freeze-thaw cycle that we have, the first couple inches in the soil. Our concern is the deep compaction, 7, 8, 9 inches down. We've talked about this before. A decade later, we can come back and still find that compaction.
Now, despite all these challenges, we still are seeing 200 bushel yields for corn and above average soybean yields as well.
Absolutely. We already have reports of over 60 bushel for beans. For some folks, 55 is not out of line. I've heard that number many times. So the problem is getting the crop from good or excellent in the field to good or excellent into the bin or silo.
And that will be determined in part if we're going to be seeing more tricks or treats when it comes to area weather.
As the fall harvest progresses, the question for farmers is, do you store this year's crop or sell it? One area market analyst is telling growers it depends on what that crop is.
Yeah, inventory, because we're looking at a record soybean production and carry out. And even if we have some losses there, which they're talking about, there was an article today about some of the southern soybeans are rotting in the field and some of them are falling out and stuff, but generally, those reports are every year, and it doesn't amount to a whole lot. It's enough to support the market right now. Export sales aren't doing very well, which tariffs are probably part of that.
Now, on the corn side, Schmal sees a different scenario.
They're dropping carryover from last year. Even though we have a big crop, demand has been better. And I'm more friendly to the corn than the soybeans. Now, sometimes that sounds a little weird because there's always a relationship between corn and soybeans, but that relationship has narrowed from where it was a year or two ago. So I'm more friendly on the corn side, but boy, it's below cost of production.
But unless something major happens, Schmal's marketing strategy is quite simple.
If you sell the corn crop especially right now, buy some call options, re-ownership. But there is carry in the corn market, so you can store. Not enough carry in the soybean market, so I recommend selling it. A lot of people don't like to hear that because they like to put stuff in their bins. Right. But the bins need to be looked at as a marketing tool, not something that you just want to have full all the time. Well, the Department of Agriculture is preparing for round 2 of that trade mitigation payments. The payments are the second half of the $12 billion program to compensate producers from losses they stem from our current trade wars. Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue says the payments will not change from the first installment. So what that means, well, corn growers will receive 1 cent per bushel. We've got soybean growers receiving $1.65 per bushel on 50% of their production.
Meanwhile, wheat producers will get 14 cents per bushel. Hog producers are going to receive about $8 per animal. And on the dairy front, farmers will receive 12 cents per hundredweight on half their production. Now, Secretary Perdue added payment shouldn't come any later than sometime in December.